We are live. I am Mike Truth the Nomad, aka Boogie McCab, and my co-host, Miss.
I'm Ellen Wade, and I'm going to welcome you all into the elephant room. Today was a topic that always strikes a chord with people because it's something that doesn't even need an explanation. It's something that we talk about, that we don't talk about, we more so experience. And so the point of this conversation is to bring some conversation to, lend support to fellow Black individuals who are going through different experiences in their life where they feel like they need to wear a mask or silence themselves in a particular way just to fit in and move forward. So welcome all of you into the room. It was nice to have you, Tony and Ryan and Shannon and Kinte. Sonia, I hope you come back online soon. And we welcome everybody who's going to be logging in and looking at it through YouTube and all of those wonderful mediums. So to get started, I wanted to ask a question about, where do the masks show up for you in your lives? And I'll start the conversation by saying one of the first places I recognized it was at my workplace. And I tell the story about how when I finished grad school, I started working at a place that was all white females. And we had a staff meeting because it was a 3-month contract and they were going to extend me if I wanted it. And this woman said to me in the meeting that she's afraid of me. And I don't know, I guess I can be scary, but I don't typically just come off as scary, I don't think. But maybe there's something I need to grow on. We'll see how that goes. Mm-hmm. So I recognize that, and I wanted to be able to, come on in, Jason. We wanted to be able to talk about how it is that I could scare someone so badly, and what was I doing in that space? When they asked me to extend my contract, I said, no, thank you. I don't want to work with people who I scare. And it was after that I left and I got the job at the University of Toronto. But that was my coming right out of grad school. It's like, I'm scaring these white women that I was working with just by being. Can anyone relate?
Well, even to add to your experience, I think even for myself, I think it's only recently
we can see
in the
Jason.
background. You can see our friend Jason, the owner of
Spread
Love Clothing. That's an amazing clothing line. It's called Spread Love. He's crawling through backwards, okay. But for myself personally, I think though I've been aware of what it is, what respectability politics and identity politics are. I think I recently just actually came into terms of seeing how they manifest in my life. For me, it's like there's this thing called, I guess, the nice guy syndrome. It's basically, which is doing all these little things to kind of basically, I guess, belong. So for me, I just noticed that it's much more so. So at work, watching the way I would speak. Because I moved from the Bronx, New York to Ottawa, and when I first moved, I had a strong New Yorker accent.
Because he doesn't have one now.
And then so at that time, I had a job that entailed me talking to clients over the phone, and for some reason, my accent, it would basically push a lot of potential clients away. So I was actually pulled to the side and addressed that, or maybe you could try talking a bit slower, or maybe you could just talk a certain way, like this, present like this. So even those experiences back then, it still didn't sink in that that's what it was. That I had to adjust myself and conform to a certain way of being, so that way I can so that way I could belong and get income so I could survive. So I think that's when it first showed up for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shannon?
I wasn't told at work that I scare anyone. This is the first work experience where I've been the only person of color across the board. From board directors all the way down, I am the only one.
Wow.
And that has been, I mean, my living experience in and of itself is just different, but that has been very, very cautious, very careful, very calculated. Not that I've had to dummy down who I am or change my persona, but you know, sometimes you go into places and you're like, I can't portray the angry Black woman today, even though y'all piss me off, because you already have that stereotype of me. So I have to gently and kindly and cotton swab my emotions. And sometimes I just want to be like, well, I did say to my boss, and this was last year, I believe, I was like, sometimes I find it difficult in my settings to be the only person of color. And she was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. And I said, you wouldn't have to. You're a white woman.
So you were able to say that to her.
Yep. And when I was sharing this with someone in my family, they were like, oh my gosh, did she like have a heart attack, a meltdown?
Yeah, how did she react to that?
She when I said, because you're a white woman, I mean, there was really nothing she could say. It was a fact. And it wasn't said in malice or ill intent. It was just stated matter-of-factly. You don't have to pay attention to the fact that you are a white woman walking into a white room. You don't have to.
Right.
I do. And not that, can we cuss?
Yeah, of course you can. If that's
I just had not like, I mean, I'm going to keep it kind of on the calmer side. It's not like I give a damn half the time anyway. But because of who I am, I do try to be mindful of what I portray and what I present in all circles. But again, because this is my first experience where I am the only one, it's been difficult. And I'm just like you, LA, they're all women. And my mom tells me all the time, women, we can be so insecure and jealous and cutthroat to each other.
Right.
Where I am trying to build up, especially the type of field I work in. And so it's like, when God releases me from this place, I'm gonna just put that out there, because I do feel like that will eventually come, and I am content in my season now. But knowing what I know about this experience, I don't know if I would want to do it again.
Yeah,
because it's hard to be the voice.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to justify your own oppression.
I don't speak for all Black people. I don't speak for all Black women. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. So my upbringing is so far different than a lot of even my friends.
Right.
And that's a whole nother ballgame when you're in the workplace. And then I'm in upper management. So clients that I work with, when they find out my title, they're like, you're a manager? And I'm like,
yeah. I get that.
We can't do that.
I want to keep talking about that, but I just want to acknowledge Fraser. Hi, Fraser.
Hi, Fraser.
How you doing?
Nice to have you. Are there places in your life where you wear a mask?
Okay. There's places where I wear a mask. I tend not. I don't really do that. I've seen many people who do wear masks. You can usually tell them quite easily.
Really?
You can usually tell people who wear masks, who hide behind the mask that I'm okay. And in the day, I've learned in life, if people don't accept you for who you are, well, you don't hang around with me, don't be with me. In the day, recently I connected with Shannon on Facebook and stuff, and I did a radio show on a Christian radio station. I did podcasting, but also Kinty's known me for a while through the former platform Blab and stuff. But I'm from Scotland, but I rebranded my podcast recently to, I like to help people, I like to connect people to where I am in the UK, helping bring people what they do or their brand over to Scotland that they would have never had the opportunity before. And I like to hear their stories or their background, where they've come from, if they've been from come from nothing to become something, but they might have gone through some challenges in life, and by hearing their story, it will inspire others, and I want to inspire people. And now I'm aiming to do a collaboration with two others, is to start something ourselves, a radio station, which will cover one brand in 3 countries to make it more prominent and more bigger, successful, and to help people and inspire. And I love interviewing people. I interview people from America, Scotland, England, Canada, and I don't know what they are. I just want to hear their story.
Right.
And it's fun and it's exciting because everybody's been through a different walk, and it's interesting to listen because they've come from a horrible time in their life. Even people who want to commit suicide, and now they've changed it around, and that's. And it's
you raise a good point. Yeah, you raise a good point about the mental health aspect of what happens behind the mask. So how many times can I stop being who I am to make other people feel comfortable? And then what is that going to do to me on the inside? I don't know how diverse of a workforce you work in, Fraser, but do you have people of color around you?
Well, I've got more black friends probably than white friends. Because
you ever talk about their experience of changing up the way?
Well, when I say people I work, I'm actually self-employed. I run a cleaning business. I clean homes and offices. I've been self-employed for 10 years, coming up this year. So in September. So I've had people working for me. I deal with, majority of my ex-girlfriends have been of black origin, which just kind of proves that I've got kind of go down a bit of a route. But it's just I've got lots of black friends. I love how they're made. It's more over here. It's more the African culture over here probably than obviously in America. It's like there's lots of different parts of Africa and things. I've worked with a lot of people, and I constantly. I've got a community built up on Facebook through people I just kind of connect with, and I was passing business to a guy called Curtis Brooks, who's in Texas, and I was passing him business from 2 people in Scotland, and I was passing somebody else in the Bahamas, and saying, "Listen here, passing business." I just love doing networking and connecting people, and I'll sit here and I'll think, well, I want you to connect with this person, that person, even though you're in America.
Oh, so you're connected.
Yeah, I love connecting people. I will sit and say, listen, you've got a business, awesome. You can do business together. And I love helping people. I love just doing what I'm doing, because I just interviewed, a story you might like is one of my recent podcasts, a guy called Darren King, who I just interviewed. And he was obviously, he does fitness, but he was talking about how it's about healing yourself from the inside out, and how he changed his life, and his journey and what he does now. So, but I just enjoy interviewing people. It's good fun. It's I just listen.
Yes, in Scotland, they don't like to stay on topic.
Yeah.
I apologize. I apologize. I've gone a bit off. I just
about what it is that you have noticed about your own experience in regards to respectability politics.
Sorry, say it again.
Kente.
Oh, sorry, Kente. Kente.
Oh, sorry.
As far as wearing a mask, I don't wear. Maybe this has hurt me in the past, but I try to be the same Kente in every room, and so what that does sometimes is like, so what I'll say to you guys in this room, I'll say in any other room. I'm always the same person. I try to stay the same. And so I haven't worn a lot of masks or whatever. For the most part in my life, I've always been self-employed. I have worked on different jobs and stuff, but I've mainly been self-employed. So I've always had the fortune, I've been fortunate to be able to keep with myself because I control my own destiny, right? So that's one of those things that allows you to be yourself. A lot of times when you got to count on somebody else for your paycheck, that's when you have to wear a mask and tap dance and shuck and jive and all of that. So that's why I think it's important, not just for, just being who you are, but so I can look at myself in the mirror, just to be myself. And I haven't been under that pressure really to have to be someone else.
Have there been places where you've gone where you can tell that they expected you to be a certain way, and then,
all the time.
Yeah. What can you give me an example of that?
All the time. I'll tell you, there's one time though, before I get to that, where you unfortunately have to wear a mask. That's when you get pulled over by the cops, because what you really want to say might get you killed. So that's when you got to kind of do a little tap dance. But I've been many times where I had like a position or something where they sent me in, and for some reason you would think by my name they would know I was black, but when I got there, they were like, "Oh, this is young black guy." I'm like, "You should have known by my name." I don't think there's too many white guys named Kente, but I've been in situations where people thought I was going to be somebody else or something else or something like that. So, it always makes me laugh, because I'd be like, surprise, it's not who you think it is, coming in that door.
It doesn't always have to be negative. I remember when I first moved to California, and it was in Marin County, and people, when I would speak to them, they would say, "Oh, you're so articulate."
Yeah,
I want to say, what the F does that mean? But, I know what they mean.
I'm interested, like earlier before the show, you were talking about the video that was online today about the NFL player that he's with a Caucasian lady, and in the video you see them cheering to the fact that the baby's light skinned. So he's a dark skinned brother saying, cheer some more light skinned babies and stuff. So something like that, I actually wonder how something like that is experienced. For example, Shannon, and then after that, Fraser. I want to know, when you come across situations like that, how it's experienced from your perspective.
Well, they don't know what it looks like.
Okay, so yeah.
So
you're talking about mixed race kids, you mean?
Yes, they're saying, so there's a bunch of black NFL players sitting around the table, and all of them have either a white wife or a white girlfriend, and they're celebrating the birth of one of them having a child. And the salute says, "Cheers to having more light-skinned kids." That's what they're all cheering around the table. That's what they're saying.
There's a lot of mixed race kids over here. I see these days. There's probably more now than there used to be. You do get a lot of. You do. I think it's that on there's two scales here. You'll see there's a lot. What I've seen, in one hand, I've seen a lot of guys of black origin who have been dating white women, but it's usually with the base. Well, there's a lot of. And it's maybe not as bad now because things are a bit stricter, but it was visa hunters. Basically, get married, have kids, and get your papers, and then disappear after 2 years, that kind of thing. But obviously, there's a lot of but that can happen, and it's just usually a fact. It has seen it. And it's a shame that you tend to have the single white mum with a kid, basically mixed race.
Can you see how they might be talking about light-skinned kids are better than black-skinned kids, darker-skinned kids? Do you see that?
No, I think it's not. We're different over here. I wouldn't say any better. I think it's just. I think in.
Would you be open to considering that if that was the case, how that might impact other people to think that lighter means better?
Not really. I think it's maybe because they're trying to gauge it toward. It's almost maybe I think it's almost like is it not like it sounds very much like I'm going to say the word racist slur almost. It's almost like a derogatory, disregarding your own. So if they're saying that the white kid, the lighter skin gets more, is better than your own race, it's like you saying is better than your own race. I think, hang on a minute, you're almost like you're slating your own color, your own heritage, and that's like, well, why? It's kind of weird. So I think it's almost like it sounds like it's almost a bit of racism to their own culture, even though which sounds like, well, there's no difference. It's a mixed. you get many mixed. It doesn't matter whether they're white, it can be black, or it can be Indian, it can be mixed from different cultures. It doesn't matter really. End of the day, it's nobody's better. I think it
matters. And
Sorry.
Shannon, I'm just curious about
your perspective.
Thank you, Fraser, for your comments. What you're describing is a type of internalized racism. But before we get into internalized racism, I just wonder, Shannon, what comes up for you when you look at that or hear what we're saying about that situation?
I mean, we've dealt with that whole light skin, dark skin epidemic dilemma battle for as far back as we've been brought over to these Americas. I mean, the light skinned women or people were given the best jobs in master's house. And the dark skinned women were only good enough to birth the children. And that then moved into the brown paper bag theory,
right?
And set up a classism amongst ourselves. Me personally, I've always been dark skinned. Actually, I was darker skinned in my single digit years. I don't know if that was just how that worked out or product of being a sun child, but and I've always embraced my dark skin. I've never saw it as a threat or in competition to someone who is light skinned. And I think sometimes that speaks to a level of ignorance, almost an ideal of superiority. That statement on that video. Not that there's nothing wrong, because there's nothing wrong with having a light-skinned child. But your child is no more precious than a dark-skinned child, than a white child, than an Asian child, than any other child. So for me and my girlfriends talk about this all the time. Matter of fact, one of my girlfriends had just mentioned to me that she hates when men come to her, and usually they're African Americans, and say, I never date a Black woman, but I date you.
Oh, she gets a pass.
There's a lot going on there. That's a lot going on there. Like,
so there are so many things in our culture that boil down to what side. Like, people, you see those memes where people be like, "Oh, this is light skin season," or "Team Black, dark skin." It's like, y'all all Black. I don't understand. Who cares? You're like, y'all all you can shoot when y'all get pulled over. White women still clutch their purses if you a man, light skin or dark skin, it don't matter. Half of y'all still get followed around in the mall thinking you're gonna steal something. Light skin or dark skin don't matter. So there is no superiority. We've created that amongst ourselves. We've infiltrated that idea as if it's something real when it's not.
But do you not think that darker skinned people have a harder time than lighter skinned Black people?
Oh, I don't care what nobody say. I'm the shiz naive. Okay.
Yes, you are.
So,
yes.
Light skin, dark skin, middle skin, whatever you want to call them.
So you have a good sense of self. Maybe if there's somebody that is going to see the rebroadcast of this, what is it that you tap into to get that confidence? Because I've met so many dark-skinned Black girls that are having a lot of pain. Okay. And the light-skinned Black girls are not having the same kind of pain. So there's something that we're not talking about. My mom always says she does not know where she got me from. I didn't grow up with someone feeding me constantly, "You are beautiful," or feeding me constantly that your skin is great. What I did get and what I did gather from my childhood was that I was loved. But what I grew into was an appreciation of myself. Identifying that I am worthy, that I am enough. Because I was bullied in terms of, and I'm not really bullied, picked on, because up until the 6th grade, I was the tallest person in my school. Because the boys hadn't reached their puberty yet. I was already, I'd already started my womanhood, and you know what I'm talking about, LA. Yes.
Men, you'll catch.
I got you.
And I was one of the darkest Black girls on the playground. So I got picked on for so many different things that you can only either create a wall around it or grow in spite of it. And for me, I knew who I was. I valued who I was. And I wasn't going to let anybody discount me because they didn't like that I was too tall, that I had boobs, that I was too dark in their eyes. And I think when we start to speak to ourselves and start to honor our own spirits and start to uplift who we are, not what people say we are, because that's a lie, but start to give honor and value to ourselves, whether that's a daily affirmation, whether that's pinpointing one thing that you truly love about yourself. Because yes, I'm a flawed individual, but let some knucklehead or some hater come up to me and say something to the contrary of what I believe. I'm not about to entertain that. I know I'm beautiful. I know I'm gifted. I just also happen to be Black and dark skinned. But I am all of those things, not because of those things. Because I hate when people say, "Oh, you're cute for a dark skinned girl." No, I'm just cute. Period.
Yeah, you're just cute.
Actually, I'm actually interested. Tony, thanks for joining the conversation. So,
wait, and don't leave. I have to ask you something else, but go ahead, Tony.
Ellie, I forgot the name of your friend there. What's your friend's name?
Boogie.
Boogie. Hey.
Hey, what's up, bro?
So, no, I'm sorry, Boogie. Go ahead.
So I was wondering, as a Caucasian person, do you see the politics of like amongst us? I guess if you have African descendant friends and everything, you see the fight between team dark skin and team light skin, and like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of wanted to bring it a little bit more on a personal side as far as health and politics goes. And it does fall into play here because there's a lot of similarities. I have to wear a lot of masks every day, mainly because I have type 1 diabetes and cerebral palsy and a bunch of other health problems and things like that. So I have to wear a lot of masks in my life, especially since let me show you something. This is an insulin pen. That's insulin right there. This is the thing I prick my finger with, so I can check my glucometer with a glucometer right there. Anyway, the reason I showed you that real quick is because that is one of the masks that I have to wear constantly. When I go out to a restaurant, when I go out to a bookstore, when I go out in public, and people see me with these things, they instantly think either one, I'm doing drugs, doing street drugs, illegal drugs, something like that, or it's or I'm dealing drugs. And a lot of people are very offensive to the point of, why'd you have to take that shot in front of me? It's very disgusting. Don't do that. And or just
Tony.
And it just kind of, I have to really explain to people. I'm like, look, this is a problem that I have. I have type 1 diabetes. I have to take this stuff to live. And so sometimes I have to do it in public.
Do they understand afterward?
Do what?
Do they understand afterward and empathize with you?
They do. They do. Most of the time they do.
And that's
but a lot of times they're just like, yeah, but did you have to do that in front of me? That's disgusting. I don't know.
They're not used to seeing that. But the beautiful thing is, after explaining that situation to them, they have a sense of understanding. Whereas I don't even get the opportunity to explain that I'm actually not these stereotypes that you're assuming that I am. I'm not angry. I'm actually a really loving, beautiful person. And you can't ascribe to me who you think I am and then silence me so that I can internalize an idea that there's something wrong with me. It's very difficult to go through life not being who you are and only being what people expect from you.
Yeah.
Kente says I'm so angry.
Well, and it's the same for other issues in my life. I have other health problems, and I have to wear orthopedic braces on my shoes and diabetic shoes, and sometimes people see them and they're like, "Well, what's the deal with those? Why do you have to wear those? What's and it does fit into what you're talking about here, mainly for the fact that it is a mask that I have to hide all the time. I have to sometimes, literally explain to people, managers of restaurants or uninformed people. Look,
and that's just one aspect of who you are, and that's not all of who you are.
And actually, I want to I thank you so much for that, Tony. I want to share this experience that I had growing up when I was younger. So I am of African descent, from Ghana, right? And when I was growing up, I remember there was a time in my high school career where in my high school life where for some reason part of my face was getting lighter and lighter, and then I come to find out that the lotion that I was using was actually a bleaching cream, and so basically, and so basically for myself. That aspect for myself. So when I basically noticed that about myself, other people around me as well noticed that basically my face is getting lighter while my hands are dark. So then what that basically made me feel as there was a bit of confusion. So when I got home, I'd ask my mom and my brother, "Yo, what's going on here? What's up with this lotion?" And then my mom, she basically she would always encourage. She said, she said, "Papa, you have to look presentable when you go out." She's African, that's why I'm doing that voice. Yeah, you have to look presentable. You have to look good. When people see you, they'll see you good. And for me, at that point in my life, there was an understanding that lighter seems to be better, and so for me, that aspect, it had me thinking a lot. Then I started seeing that happen all around me, towards other Africans as well, and then also in our in the way that certain Black Americans would behave, which was basically out here things like, "Hey, you're talking white, you're talking too ghetto," and so then it was almost as if unconsciously I was partaking in this way of being, whereas now it's my behavior and my looks and everything. It had to follow a certain pattern in order for me to be acceptable. For example, my mom, basically wanted me to look a bit lighter, so that way I would have an easier time in the world. So when I see a video cheers to more light-skinned babies, that for me as a dark-skinned male, sometimes it could really scare me. It scares me not because I'm against anything. I'm all for love. However, though, when I sit back and I look at society in general, I see primarily the great big and I think in two shows ago we called it the great gender divide between Black women and Black men, and I see this separation where it's we've gotten to a point where we actually don't like ourselves as Black people, for a lot of Black people. And that's very disheartening because, yes, cheers to more babies, not just, light skin and dark skin. Cheers to more babies, but it's so acceptable, so easy for people to basically make light skinned babies. And for me, I wonder how that experience is experienced by my Caucasian counterparts. When you hear stories like that, when you hear stories about basically why Black people. Go ahead, Fraser.
I've seen that a lot, actually. I've actually an ex-girlfriend. They seem to look, for some reason, it's weird. And you do see a lot of stories. A lot of white people want to be women, mainly women, want to become more darker or tanned because they're just They look like the Walking Dead. Or they go sunbathing. It takes them a week to get white because they start off blue, because it's so that's right kind of thing. But no, it's sorry, it's a Scottish joke. Apologies. But they do want to be more darker. And there was that German woman or something who constantly got injections into her. Now she's literally known as black to darken her skin. And you do get a lot of black women using bleach cream and to lighten themselves up, and you wonder why. You go, crumbs, I don't see the craze. I suppose there's a lot. It's just weird. I don't understand why you'd want to be. Understand maybe for us, maybe for white guys or people who live in there's not much sun going on. It's a bit chilly. You might want a nice bit of tan, a bit of colour. You go on holiday, great, and you look good. You do look healthy. You feel a bit healthier, but I don't obviously it's a weird thing how it's the kind of a bit across. People want to look darker, get a tan. They're constantly bathing.
Well, I hate to say this, and it might be opening up a whole big can of worms here, but I hate to say this because I'm not going to name any names because some people, if some people watch this,
feel free to this. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to name any names because if people watch this and they see it, they're like, okay, you have just destroyed your future career. But one of the big problems is the entertainment business, industry. It has really and pop culture in general. Pop culture and the entertainment business has really put a damper on the way that people think, the way people act, and it's really put stereotypes as far as how white people should be white, how black people should be black, how Caucasians should be Caucasians, how all the nerds and the geeks should be nerds and geeks, and how it really does. I mean, look at every movie, every television show that you do. You have one specific kind of character for every little subset, and you does that make sense where I'm going?
No, it does. And one thing that actually I'm noticing, because so to kind of a bit touch on what Fraser was saying earlier, the not understanding why, basically like black people would want to be a bit lighter, and and how, I mean, when you look around, a lot of basically Caucasians want to go tan and everything. It's because, to your point, Tony, for the longest time in media and just in our mindsets, it was not that wasn't the case. It wasn't shown that a lot of people would want to associate with blackness. So for a lot of black people, that mindset, it basically made people internalize the fact that, hey, maybe my big lips are not nice. Maybe them big hips are not something that's welcomed. So I think it's a societal influence that has basically created this narrative of how black wasn't always beautiful. As to now, it seems like all of a sudden out the woodworms, everybody wanted to celebrate blackness. While for the longest time, when you look at African history, people of African descent were enslaved, which is part of the narrative that we often push a lot. And because of the enslavement of along with that is basically, it was tagged along with every tagline of you are less, your skin tone is not good, your features are not good, your intelligence, and so the degradation of a lot of melanated people over centuries of time, it brings forth a lot of ideologies of you're less. So I think that's basically what contributes to people wanting to be white, while as conversely, for some reason, it's weird. The same group of people that seem to be doing this degradation now is trying to tan, or you see a lot of different relationships, which is great. Love is a beautiful thing.
I think it's because they compartmentalize blackness. They take the parts of blackness that they like, and then they want to adopt that into their own cultural makeup. But at the same time, they're disenfranchising those other aspects of black people so that they can't have a proper quality of life. We are still in some ways treated as if we aren't human beings. And so
they want the color, the booty, the lips, and everything, but they don't want the struggle. They want our rhythm, but they cannot tolerate our blues.
I tell you what, we'll hop off so can't take
got bars up in the room here today. Shannon's got bars. I understand. I just want to be really cognizant of the fact that this space is to talk about the taboo and unspoken topics that are impacting the Black community. And while I appreciate the concerns and the point of views of our white guests in the room, which I welcome you to be a part of, I do want to see if there's any other people of color who would like to be in the room.
Also, just quickly, my niece. Sorry, Tony. So I was just going to say my niece.
No, I was just
don't fight over me. It's okay.
Just quickly, I'll jump out. My niece, who she for some reason has got fake tan on galore, and you see her when obviously the face, you take the makeup off, it's like it's just the teenage culture. But her hands are almost like orange. I thought, for good grief, it's like what? And she's like, she'll be 17 this year, and she walks around looking like a glow in the dark, and it's like because of all the fake tan, because it's just it's the culture of the teenage. It's the kind of what they all tan themselves up and just want to be darker. I thought, like, okay, you're more like orange, like a walking orange, rather than
Yes.
I'll jump out. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Fraser. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I was just going to say I was going to hop out.
I want to give a shout out to all the people that are in the room. I can't see everyone on my right side, but I can see those who have made a comment. So I just want to welcome, I think there's someone named Bet, Dawn, Carter, Dr. Vibe.
Yeah.
So I just want to give a shout out to those people. I know that somebody had made a reference to being in the room before.
Yes, and there's a spot that just opened up, so please feel free to grab a spot. And I think it was a Carter, or maybe
yeah, there was somebody talking about their work experience.
Yes,
I think it was Carter.
It was a bit
there. Why is it that every other race believes that they are entitled, but Black people are expected to make the adjustment to appease all other races?
Honey, listen.
Oh,
we make that difference every part of our life, everything we do, regardless. It's not just the workplace; it's everywhere.
Yeah,
we always
I don't know if you guys
or dim down.
Yes, continue.
I don't know if you guys saw Cory Booker. The guy who's running for president.
Yes.
He was on the Breakfast Club.
Yes.
And they asked him specifically.
By the way.
Huh?
There's nothing wrong with stuttering. You just, there's things that make people stutter.
They asked him specifically what he was going to do to help the Black community. And that's when his ass started stuttering.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? And every other community, he can tell you specifics is what he's going to do and all this. But when it comes, and that's what all these politicians, when it comes to Black people, then it's, well, we'll help everybody and then you'll get a piece. Like, it's always like that kind of stuff. So that's how we get done. And it's because we allow it. We need to start putting people's feet to the fire and saying, if that's not good enough.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. And so if you got to wear a mask, take a mask off, whatever you got to do to get what you, we got to do that. Yeah.
So that dude was on the Breakfast Club saying this?
Yeah, Cory Booker.
Yeah.
So I find that he was playing respectability politics in the sense that he wanted to get his Black card up again.
He wants to pop
and so he goes on that talk show. But if
kudos to for Charlamagne for asking the question.
Yes, on that.
Yeah,
and then sticking with it too. So that made him stutter, and because he thought he was just gonna come on there and say his BS and breeze on out of there.
Right. He didn't rehearse for that. Like, how they practice their questions before. He didn't rehearse for that one. He wasn't prepared.
Right.
No.
And that's the interesting part too, because just like earlier today as well, like I read this article by Serena Williams, and it said that white men treat women better than Black men. And so for me, just that statement alone, and from who it came from, it was very, very much like, so there's a lot of truth on the surface level in that. And it was a very, very disturbing statement for me, because I think that even a lot of Black people are not in awareness as to why, if it's a fact in your life, why that might be, or what is what is contributing to that aspect of society. Why is it that white men seem to have an easier time or easier way of just being, in contrast to a Black brother who is in relationship with a queen, with a Black sister.
Well, I have something to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, say it, brother.
Okay, that's bullshit. That white men that treat women better. That's just bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when some sisters do go with a white guy, they go with a white guy who is like, a lot of times the brothers they go with asshole brothers. So if you go with if that's what your choice of Black men is, that's what you're gonna get out of it. And so, huh?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think sometimes that's what happens. If you look at her track record, it's her specifically, the guys that she went after. Well, what do you expect?
So
what do you expect? I'm sorry.
Is that who we're William?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Serena right now?
Yes.
Well, we're talking about Serena, but you can use her as a.
But no, that is one thing we will not jerk versus. She said that was specific to her situation. She didn't say a blanket
I'm
statement.
talking about her specific situation.
No. I'm not negating what you're saying, Kente. But the problem with articles and then putting them out there, usually the tagline is misleading or deceptive. Yes. And that's what happened. That's no different than the Tina Knowles situation. Now, don't get me wrong. There was the way she handled that on TV that might have come off disruptive. But the point is, that was an advertisement for the Black Love segment. So, of course, their ratings went up for that. There is a way to promote something to the opposition of that bandwagon. What Serena said is very specific to her. Case in point, I've never dated outside my race. But I know there are good men and donkey holes in every race. So there is no reason for anyone to make a astronomical, asinine comment and say that some race is better than the other. I'm always going to support Black men. Down, right to the core, whether they dogs or not, because I see potential and promise in each and every one of them. I'm not going to talk about them in a negative way that puts light on someone else's race, because my father is Black. Hopefully the man I marry is Black. The children we bring into this world through birth or adoption will be Black. And that is who I am. I am not in opposition to anyone else because I love all people, but I am Black first and foremost. And therefore, anything I say about you as a man or another woman who is Black like me will be uplifting. But that article, that tagline jerked that whole thing out of context. Now, Black men may not been able to handle Serena. And not saying that she met every Black man, because I know there are some strong, able-bodied men who are able to. But we also have to look at the circle in which she travels in. So therefore, she may not have met men who were even interested in her that were Black. So we also have to consider those things as well. Everybody's circle looks different. Sometimes who you attract is not necessarily who is available to you. So I'm with her. I support her. I support what she's got going on. I believe in love and the possibilities of it. However, in my daily prayers, I do ask God for a Black man.
And also, I just want to add, Kento, if you're able to see who's in the room, because like we're not able to, can you give them a quick shout out so they basically do?
Sure, I'll do that. I see Ryan. I see Frazier. I feel like Romper Room. You probably asked them about that. I see Vet. I see Don. I see Carter. I see Patricia A. Murray. What up?
Stop it. Oh my God.
Dr. Vibe. I see Zavara.
Hey, Rasta. Welcome, Rasta.
Well, take the spot, Zavara.
Yes.
You just click
Tania
on it.
and Ray Ann just came in.
Hey, what's up, Ray?
What's up, girl? Okay, so there's a
quick, Kente. Let me say something real quick, LA, because I seen Kente's face and I know my co-host well enough. Kente, in no way, shape, or form was I dismissing anything you said. I think everything you said was valid, and I want to honor what you said. But I said what I said because we, as Black women, the moment we step outside of our circle of comfort, according to society, we are held to the state. Now, don't get me wrong. Black women got comments about Black men dating white women. I'm here for it. If that's who you like, I love it. Because I'm not trying to get with every Black man in America, in the world. So I know that they all are going to have their own preferences. But I think on every topic that relates to Serena, and this could go for any other Black woman, but she gets scrutinized on every single thing she does, she says, she wears, she dates, her birthing option, everything she does is scrutinized. So we have to remember who the product of this article was written on. And the person who wrote that tagline specifically so we could sit at the table and talk about it. That was a good editorial tip.
Yeah.
Whoever, they did well.
Zavara, welcome. We can't see you, but I'm sure we can hear your voice if you speak. And if you aren't going to speak, that's okay right now. I just wanted to talk to Carter. I wanted to acknowledge that Carter wrote, the reality is that white men are more deceptive and these Black women fall for the bullshit. Sorry, when Kente just made a comment, I lost what it said. Fall for this bullshit.
If we are to be real.
If we are to be real, I think it is.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? White men are more deceptive? More deceptive? I think it speaks to what Shannon is saying, is that you can't attribute these things just to a race. But at the same time, I found it fascinating, just talking about elephants in the room. I find there's elephants popping up all over the messages here, where somebody
Don was like,
Don
he
said
likes
to
Kente.
He was saying to Kente, I like people like Kente because he does not talk about race. He just goes about his daily business with confidence and clarity. My question, Don, is what's wrong with talking about race, and why are you saying thank you as if that's a compliment to not talk about race? This is a conversation about race. So I don't understand why we wouldn't talk about the thing that is very apparent in all of our lives and that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis.
And I do talk about race too, by the way.
I do comment behind his house and say he probably talks about it. He probably just don't talk to Don about it.
Okay.
No, I do talk about race, but
respectability politic, because that's what this show is about. Is there certain conversations that we have? Obviously, we have them with some people and not with others, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason why some people don't have a conversation about race with people, because maybe they don't they can hear it or understand it because we're coming from our lived. Go ahead.
I think he hasn't been in the room when I have been. But I can talk about things with confidence and clarity. That's for sure.
He does not care about race. Is Don a white man? I can't see his.
He's from Denmark. Don is from Denmark.
The fact that somebody can even say that they don't care about race is a privilege, because we can't say that because our lived day-to-day experiences is based on how we show up, how we just be. We can't change that. I guess that's a privilege to you, Don, and more power to you. But you may want to consider that you're hearing, so that in spite of the fact that you may not have that understanding that race may not matter to you, the people that you may be interacting with, it matters to them. Yeah. It's a lens that they move through this life with. And so interacting with you is going to I get it. I care about a person's attitude, but a person's attitude, like say my own, will be filtered by the fact that I'm treated a particular way just because I'm a Black woman. And while we can definitely have conversations about just who we are as people, I'm treated a different way just because I'm Black. And I don't know if you have that experience. And it's not important necessarily for you to give up.
No, like, see,
it's not about giving up, sweetie. It's about understanding. It's about understanding that I have an experience that's different than yours, and that if you can acknowledge that about my experience, it's just as bad as it being blatant in my face, because it makes me silence myself when I can't speak fully about my life experience to somebody I'm trying to communicate with.
And also, that's this point. And I like the fact that we have this space because all voices are welcomed. And I think, Don, so like the attitude that you have is something I think primarily we all strive for, to be able to be in a place where we say, hey, I do not see race and whatnot. And to add to what Alay is saying as well.
I want to see all the races.
Like for me, to add to what Alay is saying as well, is like, yes, our experience has been tied to our race often. And so even when, to go back to the Serena article, because it's not just Serena that basically is saying that. This is like a narrative that's being pushed as well by the media, so people can also like jump on and say, hey, yes, you're right. I have been mistreated by a lot of like black men, so therefore black men ain't shit, and vice versa. So for me, I think that the privilege that basically that you have in order to say that you don't care about race. For me, like as a black man, there's a lot that basically like there's a lot of opportunities that I cannot obtain because yes, it is tied to my basically like my skin color, and like I've been in the world. Go ahead.
Can I say something? Because he says I could say the same thing about someone with a handicap. No, you can't.
Yeah.
Because there's not a system that was created to specifically hold handicapped people back. No, you're talking about individual prejudice. Prejudice and racism are two different things. We all are prejudiced to a certain degree. Racism is a system designed to hold black people specifically back. And some people will say, oh, well, what about Oprah and all of that? There are a few who goes through the cracks and all of that, but at the end of the day, they don't have no real significant power. They have individual wealth potentially, or they maybe individual have money, but at the end of the day, it's a system specifically aimed at black people. There is no system to hold handicapped people back. Okay, so I have friends who have handicapped, and so you're comparing being handicapped and black. Come on now. That's not.
I can understand.
Black is a handicap.
All right.
Being black is a handicap. There's an elephant. What do you have to say?
I understand where you're coming from, as you may get treated differently because you're black. I think it happens with just in any culture, race, because it's the bad. It's the bad people who commit like crimes and things like probably let the good people who are genuine down. Like for example, it can maybe. I think that's probably in any culture. There's always those people who will let your culture down because of the ones who just go out and maybe commit crimes. And when there's actually the genuine people who have done absolutely nothing wrong, but it's the people. It's like, for example, it's the youths of today. It doesn't matter where they are in this country here, because of the laws and how they've changed them. You can't. 20, 30 years ago, if a kid or a youth would go out and they cause vandalism. You go out and catch them. You wouldn't just give them a good stiff kicking because of how dare you go back because they're destroying public property. But now because of the law, you can't touch them because you get in trouble and you've not done anything. But it's basically them. It's letting the society down because you can't touch them these days because of all the you can't harm, you can't do anything because it's not you. You're just trying to help.
Fraser, I can differentiate between what you're saying and who you're even about, but I appreciate that it might be intimidating to have a conversation, and that I know that you have a good heart and that you embrace difference. That's definitely coming through. Mm-hmm. You know, I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it's a cultural. It can be. It's horrible. It's not nice anywhere. It's the horrible that
I know. Race is a difficult conversation to have, especially when we're speaking with people who are not of the same race and trying to get them to understand the different perspectives that the person who is melanated is experiencing. We're not asking for a validation from anyone who is non-Black to say, oh, what we're saying is true.
No.
Because what we're saying is speaking to our experience. So we don't need validation for it, right?
Yeah, of course.
So how much did I miss? Dre, you missed a lot.
You missed a lot, Dre, man.
It's like not
Shannon is bursting. So can we just let Shannon have for a second here?
And this is no
take a breath.
This is no slight against anyone who is non-Black or identifies himself as African American or a person of color. But I have had this conversation. Someone friend me on Facebook, and then later sent out a friend request again, because I had made a comment about another senseless crime, another senseless murder at the hands of police. And what I responded when she said, "We are all one race. We are all one human race, and it should be about love." And I said, it absolutely should be about love. I said, however, you guys have always been the standard in society, so you don't even see the bigger picture, miss. It's all one human race. I said, and the unfortunate truth to it is you won't realize it until you're a biracial child who they will see as Black, not biracial. They're not going to care nothing about having a white mama. When they see your Black son out in community and pull him over because maybe he has a nice car, or they follow him in the store, and she got offended.
Wow.
You need to understand that this fight is all about Black people, yes, but it's about all of us. It will eventually trickle down and affect every single soul. Those who are in a place of position and power don't want to talk about it. Case in point, I love history, so I'm here for it. But I am sick and tired of honoring every other atrocity and being told to not forget and to remember the Holocaust and on Native Americans and the war on this. But as soon as we talk about slavery, as soon as we talk about robbing our heritage and, stealing, because they didn't steal slaves, they stole kings and queens and artists and doctors and entrepreneurs. We became slaves when we got here. So when they tell us to, well, when are you going to get over that? When are you going to let that go? I am asked to remember every other damn thing that happens in this world, but you want me to forget that my ancestors were shackled to ships?
Forget and don't be angry about it.
Forget. We just started getting slave museums in our own country where the atrocity happened, but every major city has a memorial to the Holocaust, which didn't even happen here. So you asked me to forget what? Forget that you don't care about us. Forget that we mean nothing to you. We have built this country's infrastructure from the ground up. Why would I ever forget what my ancestors have done?
But it's not even just slavery, though. Because if it ended with slavery, then maybe you could say something. But then after slavery, you had Reconstruction. You had Jim Crow.
Yes.
The Civil Rights Movement. The Tuskegee Experiment. I mean, you go on, and it still goes on. So
and still no reparation.
Right.
Honey, listen, I don't even need the mule. Just give me some land. Let me mind my business. Let all my friends who want to smoke without going to jail.
I want my mule. I want my mule. I don't know what I get here in Canada.
I'll take Shannon's mule.
In Canada, I get to pretend like my life is better than Americans.
I want to be like my grandparents. I want to plant something. I want to feel the earth. I want to watch it bloom. I want to be appreciative of what I put my hard heart and work into. But don't ever ask me to forget. Don't ever look at my face and say, "Oh, you still talking about that?" Honey, people still do pay in America. I would not qualify because I am past the color of a paper bag. So please don't do anything. People are still getting lynched in America.
Yeah. Yep. Look at that guy from Empire.
Like a child in the West Coast was an article. So you cannot tell me to forget anything about my culture, about my ancestors, about American history. This is American history. But the person, the victor, the one who won, doesn't want to talk about the things that put them in a bad light, which is why we don't talk about, well, we just now acknowledging that Christopher Columbus didn't experience and actually find anything. It was already a found land. So we don't want to talk about those things that matter those things that are real, the things that are true, the things that have impact and value, because it puts the people who are in power in a bad light, because they have to own up. It may not be you, my brethren, but it was your ancestor who shackled, who chained us, who whipped us, who so that they could have these light-skinned babies, and now your football player cousin is up there hollering about. Yeah, please don't ask me.
Dre, I take it you came in because you want to add to this conversation.
Well, after Shannon, I don't know if there's much to add. I don't think she's that at all. And I think that's the key. Like, America doesn't want to own up to that. They'll celebrate everybody else's atrocities, but when it comes to their own and trying to make, the thing is, if they acknowledge it the way they should, they'll have to try to make it right. They're not trying to make anything right. They're just trying to move forward. But when they're moving forward, they're not we're still so far behind that they can continue moving forward. We're always going to be continuing to try to catch up.
Yeah.
There you go.
We put up a lot of things on our Instagram account because it's a way of having a visual that kind of encapsulates the kind of things that we talk about in the room here.
Yeah.
And one of the ones on @theelephant_room_TV that you'll find on IG is a picture of a bleeding fist and it said Black Lives Matter. Mm. And then the white hand is giving it a finger saying, and their hand says all lives matter. And I think that's what we're kind of talking about here, is that as soon as we try to put our issues on the table, it needs to encompass everybody and every disability and every sexuality and everything. And the Black race has enough to carry on its own, that those intersections that we all are a part of, while it also plays out into our experience, there's something very specific about being Black, which is the elephant in the room. That's what we need to keep on the table. So I hope Don doesn't give up. I hope he doesn't walk away. I hope he has something to learn from, that we all want it. Of course, we're all spirit beings having a human experience, but the human experience that we are having is a Black human experience. And that's very different from your experience, Don. And that's all we're here trying to give voice to those kind of.
And race is such an uncomfortable topic to talk about for those that are beneficiaries of it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I think, you know what? To hear somebody say that you're a racist, it sounds really harsh, but it's a continuum. It's not like because you're a racist doesn't mean that you're hanging people from a tree. It could mean that you're taking part in the microaggressions at work. Yeah. It could mean you are excluding people from certain opportunities. Yeah. So there is a continuum that people fall on, and maybe there needs to be a nicer word to help them realize that about themselves. But it is. But you gotta own it.
But you gotta own it, LA. And I'm gonna say to the extent of that, because I remember sitting in church one day and they were visiting a church. I already had a church home, but somebody said, "Come to church with me," and I said, "Cool." And so they were passing out shirts to their visitors, and they challenged all their members to wear them that day. And I was just happened to be there that day, so I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna put this shirt on." But on the back of the shirt, it said, "I am a hypocrite."
Oh wow!
And I will never forget walking in the store with that shirt on, and people kept asking me, "Well, what does that mean?" I was like, we identify with so many titles and labels that are cushiony, that feel good, that sound good, that look good on paper, but we never want to own up to the things that don't sound good. Yeah. I am a hypocrite. I am a murderer. I am a liar. I am a thief. You know, you own the things that you were or you've done, not because they are who you identify with. They are parts of your story.
Right.
You don't always have to be a racist person. Yeah. You experience the racist moments in your life, and then you learn from them. Some people will always be racist, and that's fine. That is a choice. I am no longer bound by the things that I've done in my life. You know, I have evolved into something different. Some people who get offended by the topic of being a racist, they don't want to change, and they don't want light to be shown on that. They are comfortable with calling folks N-word, you know, talking about people and, you know, using racial slurs, and they put their money on that GoFundMe account to build a wall to keep immigrants out because they are okay with that. And that's their business. But when you identify well with what you've done, that is where healing happens. That is where you can address the things that you know are not right. And that takes maturity and a humility that most people are not willing to walk into, because ego and pride will walk straight into the grave. And people have a hard time letting
Leave it up.
right. So I think this conversation is great. And I love it. And I'm so glad I met you too, LA and Boogie. Kente, and I wouldn't even have met y'all if I hadn't have been obedient to what I believe in. Me and Kente were talking about relationships, because between Black men and Black women, we aren't having the conversation enough with each other, let alone trying to have it with other people.
Exactly.
Because our relationships are what are being oppressed, are what is scarce. You know, I believe in Nikki Giovanni's quote that Black love is wealth.
Yes.
And to me, you can more properly invest in your children, their education, their communities, when you believe in that statement. There's nothing wrong with dating outside your race. There's nothing wrong with seeing other people. There's nothing wrong with having viewpoints outside of being your own Black human being. But if you don't acknowledge that there is a disparity in our community and that you can be a solution in helping to address that, sometimes within your community, building within your community, and birthing a new community within that community, sometimes that's an ownership that many people don't want to face up to.
Yeah.
It's so true. I know Boogie's going to say something right now. Thank you, Shannon. I know you're going to say something, but before you do, I just want to parking lot my last comment before we're finished.
About this one?
No, not about that. It was about, damn, you made me forget. No, the last topic was about the respectability politics between Black people.
That's
so,
well,
okay. No, you were going to talk about the religion.
No, word to God, no.
Okay, word to God, he said. So, my brother is lying. No, but the respectability politics between Black people.
Yes.
And why I wanted to bring that up is because I work in a place where I have Black supervisors. And you would swear that I work for the white man directly himself, because sometimes what had happened is that I'm having this experience of being colonized, and I always talk about that video with the boxer.
Yeah, Deontay Wilder.
When he got mad at the Black reporter,
Radio Raheem.
Raheem's asking the boxer, "Why are you so angry?" And he's like, "What are you talking about, dude?
About your people.
We're talking about your people too. Your people too," he said over and over again. And I was just like, yo, I think I'm really angry, just like him, except I don't say it like that. And what that showed me is we're playing the respectability politics with each other, trying to gain access into positions of power and inclusion, thinking that we're better than somebody. I'm just floored by that.
And exactly like I think it's this need for survival, and like I think so. The comment was mentioned earlier on about deceptiveness and everything, and I think that there's been this, like, along with identities being stripped. Now is that we're squandering to survive in this capitalistic system, and so now whenever you get a space, like a little bit of space for where you could breathe and just say, you're good, you basically like want to ensure that it's like you keep.
You circle the wagons. The wagons get circled, and you're trying to keep it in.
Exactly. So like everybody's so focused on surviving, and that's it's bringing us down, because it perpetuates this feeling of like Black love is not there and blah blah blah, and how basically like a white, like I'm saying, I keep bringing it back to this, but how a white man could basically allow space for. Yeah, well, she's saying I'm bitter. No, I'm not. I'm not bitter. I'm just speaking facts. It's like how basically like one group of people can allow space for you to just be. See, to kind of take Don's perspective, Don is able to be in this world because Don does not have that paradigm of skin color like working against him. So Don could be and be spontaneous and everything. So it's like, for example, so for myself, let's say that, I do feel like being spontaneous, all my good intentions and everything. Now, if I decide to be spontaneous, I got to choose where I'm being spontaneous in, because that could cost me my life. And so it's a survival thing that we have like adopted, like, and then now it's like, I know, I hate everybody too, Don, but in the comments.
It doesn't mean that. I'm just kidding.
But like what you call it, like, I'm gonna read an excerpt that that we had found in regards of identity politics. It was by, is it Evelyn Higginbottom?
Oh yeah, she coined the term respectability politics,
and it's very, very It says here. It says, internalized racism occurs when a person or a group that is a target of racism assumes a racist attitude towards members of the same group, including themselves. It is a negative predictor of self-esteem. Internalized racism is an effect of internalized colonialism, in which colonized people lose their identities and begin to value the same things as a colonizing society. So like in the case of like LA's workplace, because basically like you get to this place of power, you now then basically like mimic the same attributes that allowed you to get there. And what that is doing is that it's now like our own oppression is in our hands. So we are acting as our oppressors. So I guess like my question is, like, how then do we break from that? Like, solutions oriented now. Like, what are some ways that we could learn to break from that as people? Like, Dre, you have any input, or Kente or Shannon?
Go ahead, Dre. Now.
No, you can go ahead, Kente. Sorry.
I mean, one of y'all choose, or I'm.
Go ahead,
Shannon.
Go ahead, Shannon.
I mean, I'm short. I think the beauty is in having those conversations, being comfortable in uncomfortable moments. I think coming to the table of understanding, which LA, you said that earlier. I think the shortest distance between two people will always be understanding. If you can talk about it in a safe place, that is where the conversation will lend itself to understanding and healing. Not necessarily you're going to not be frustrated, because I mean, some topics will make you mad. Some topics will be uncomfortable, but it's talking about it.
Right.
And that we just don't do enough. I may talk to one or two people, but we don't talk in forums enough about it. We don't bring people to the conversation to hear us talk about it.
And can I add to that, Shannon? I think
add to anything.
Thank you. And add, just to add to that, as we close the conversation, have smart, actionable steps to move forward. See how we can make things better. Because again, like we live in a time now where politicians like to talk, and we vote these people in the office based on what they're saying, not necessarily based on what they're doing. So having a conversation is important. That's one of the best ways to hopefully create some kind of empathy in people that you want to feel at least what you're somewhat feeling. And then having action steps afterwards that we can move forward and say, now that we've had this conversation, hopefully in 10 years, we don't have to have that conversation. But for that to happen, we need to have action steps now to take. So we may have this conversation like 4 or 5 more times. Yeah. But hopefully the 5th time, the problem will be solved.
But that's real talk. That's the difference between that and politicians. Politicians like the sweet talk.
Yeah.
They put sugar on crap and feed it to people who are ignorant to the truth. We need real talk and real lives and real hearts at the table to discuss real topics, and then hopefully come to an understanding of real solutions that can be put into practice. Because if you aren't part of the problem, you're a part of the solution, right?
Yeah, but and a big part about that, Shannon, just to add, what do we want to see happen? We can't really even talk about solutions if we don't have a clear vision of what we want to see happen as well. So we got to say, this is what we want to see happening. This is what it's going to take for us to get there. So we'll continue to talk about the problem, talk about the solution, reiterate the vision, and have action steps to get there. So
Y'all better get y'all.
I think it's.
I think Black people chase inclusion is a mistake. You should chase power and empowerment, and through your power and your empowerment, you will force your seat at the table. We want so badly, like the whole Oscar so white. Just give us a role, give us a. If they could, like I was watching this thing where all these Black people were talking about, oh, things have changed now in Hollywood, so they're going to start giving us opportunities. They do that every 10 years. No, you know what? We need to get to a point where we say, you know what? We have to create our own institutions, our own Hollywood or whatever you want to call it, and stop worrying about it's not in their best interest to empower you. You know, it's actually exactly. So why would they empower you? So you can take over? So think like that. So what we need to do is we need to change the paradigm of how we see success and being successful and what it is that we're after. We have to just stop being after a job or some sort of validation. Yeah. We have to be after our own thing and our own power. And if we can develop that mentality within our community, then that would change a lot.
Yeah, that's a great note to close off. I just want to.
It's probably like another conversation completely.
There's so many things that we want to talk about, and that's the point of this platform is so that we can engage in more of these kind of conversations. So I just want to give a shout out to Don, who actually, in being who he is, he's allowed for us to have a conversation that took a deeper cut, and that's the point. So, no, it's real. I thank you so much for being honest. And for allowing us to go there, because we still play these respectability politics with ourselves. The idea of pedigree within our community, of the upper and the lower, these are the things that make us judge one another and put each other down and keep us separated. Yeah. So I'm grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful for all of the people that came into the room. Kinte, I don't know, you don't have to do the romper room and shout everybody out that you see, but
the new people
see you for today, and I just want to acknowledge you, and that if you're in the room and we didn't see you or hear you shout out, we thank you for coming in to join us. We're going to be moving into a bigger platform by doing live town halls in conjunction with the online platform. So in our next show next week, we'll give you more information, because that platform will be how we're doing it right now is about to change and expand. And we're really excited to be partnering with the University of Toronto's Black Student Association and the Black Grad Student Association to really bring light to the things that we need to talk about and to preface these solutions. So thank you all for joining us. Boogie, you have something to say?
Do not forget to follow us on Instagram at The Elephant Room TV. So that's The Elephant Room TV all together. And so I'm going to give my handle, and then after that, the wonderful LA is going to give the best for last. So my handle is at Mike, MIC _truth. So TRUTH. So at Mike. Yeah, Mike Truth.
Truth, or is it truth?
Blah, blah. Mike Truth. And LA, what are your handles?
I'm at This Is LA Wade. I'm at LA Wade 6 on Twitter. This is LA Wade on Instagram. I have a website, thisislawade.com. And there's so many platforms for these things. I mean, there's so many.
Can I end it with a toast?
Yeah, but I also want you to shout out what you're doing and the show that you guys have. It's really important to share this information.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Me and Shannon, we're doing Men and Women Talk Tomorrow's Venus show tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. Boogie will be on that show. We're talking about Valentine's. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about love will be in the air. I think Cupid is showing up too on that show tomorrow night. So please make sure you guys check it out. And I want to give a toast to more black dark-skinned babies. There you go.
Hey, baby soup. Shit, we on this shit.
That's an inside joke for those of you who just are joining us to why I can say with that some clowns
I'm here for it.
And babies being so happy that they're being born. You'll see it on our page. If you go to our page, you'll see what we're talking about.
And keep the conversations going, guys. So like share the page. When we repost, share the conversation, and then like add your inputs to the comment section too, because like we want to keep engaging. This is an ongoing thing. This it's our conversation as a community. So like we got to keep this going, and conversation and actions.
Dre, did you want to say something?
Dre has a podcast too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thursdays at 8 p.m. Not this Thursday because it's Valentine's Day, but every Thursday 8 p.m. here on Get Vocal and YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, Dre is such a nice dude. I when I watch the show, I feel like I'm a mean person.
I'm glad he makes you reflect.
I'm such a jerk. He's like such a good guy and all of that. I need to be nicer, I guess.
He's so therapeutic. It's a part of his background and his training. He is very therapeutic.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, are a stone cold heathen.
He tells it like it is.
Wow.
Believe it.
Okay, people, be blessed. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you guys for joining.
Take care.
All right.
And then stop the broadcast and boom.
Great show.